And we're live. Today we're beaming live and direct to you from Australia, Malaysia, and in the United States. And we have our special guest who Mr. Yuri Zaritsky has been working to get on the show for the last week or so. Today, folks, we've got Kilindi Iyi on the show. Kilindi's a head instructor and technical advisor of the Tamarian Martial Arts Institute. He's a world traveler and mycologist. Kilindi has presented on the subject of psilocybe as far north as Norway and as far south as my home country here in Australia, which he's visited 3 times. His exploration and research centers on the high-dose psilocybin mushrooms. Kilindi shares information gleaned from many excursions into hyperdimensional and interdimensional realms through his direct experience with dosages in the 20 to 40 dried gram range of mushroom ingestion. Now, I've watched Kilindi on YouTube for many, many years. This is a great honor for myself, and I know for Yuri Zaritsky as well. So, gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me on the show.
We're having some issue.
Honored to be here.
It's an absolute pleasure, Kilindi. Like I was saying, I've watched you on YouTube for many, many years, and this is an absolute honor to finally be able to interview you live on our Facebook community.
Well, it's an honor, as I said, to be here. Am I up? Because I still can't see you, but that won't be a problem. We'll just go with what we got.
You're coming through loud and clear with a clear picture as well, Kilindi. It's crystal clear.
Good.
Yuri, would you like to start this exploration with Kilindi?
Oh, it's for me it's a pleasure as well. I discovered Kilindi. I discovered you, brother, not as long as you, Mikael. I don't know for which reason. I was just not lucky to find you in the videos, etc. But maybe at that point when I started to look for, when I started to key in things like heroic dose and stuff like that, I think this is the moment when Kilindi popped out. So I watched a few of your lectures, etc. The martial arts as well. I'm practicing boxing too, so I found we have a few things in common there. And I was working as well on the exploration with the mushrooms every time I traveled to Indonesia in Lake Toba, and so I was also trying to work out the dosages or to go as far as I can. I can be crazy on the sideways, so I don't mind. It's not like I don't mind. I wish to. So this is probably something that brought me to Kilindi, brother. So this is what is going on my side. And one thing that I can't find, I don't see much, even if I watch a lot of information of guys like Terrence Mc Kenna. I love his stories. I love the way he swirls his tongue and the English sways and in waves and tsunamis, linguistically speaking, he does, and the stories are interesting. But I couldn't find, in-depth guidance on how to. What I mean by that is, Kilindi is once the girl is in the hyperspace, or whatever you want to call it, psychedelic trip. What are the tools that we have? So we have 2 hours. We don't need to get serious immediately about it. But this is one point I would like to really extrapolate, if you don't mind. If you have something more urgent, I am all ears open. We can make another podcast on that, but I would really like, to see beyond all this preparation, setting, feeling good and whatever. And no, this is the guidance before. But once you are in it, how do you navigate? Do you use your intention? Do you what is it that you use? Who are your friends? Who are not? Things like that.
Well, the thing is that many times in the modern world we utilize certain methods as a primary mode of action dealing with consciousness. In other words, we deal with meditation, we deal with yoga, we may be a martial artist and do Tai Chi or Qigong or something like this. And these are methods of discipline, your breathing, things like that. So all of those things that people think are the primary thing, when in reality, the entheogens or the power plants or the hallucinogens or the psychedelics are the main access point, and you utilize those things, those disciplines that you've put together through your life to be able to help you through the difficult spots. And since you're going into realms of existence and consciousness that you've never been in, and probably no one else has ever been in, there's no roadmap on the inside. But what you do is you utilize your discipline to be able to work you through the difficult areas, the problems, things that you encounter. So if you are slung into the triple thick darkness, and you're in the darkness, and you may hear something, or you may feel a hot breath on your neck and things like that, what do? Well, that's where your breathing discipline comes in. That's where you start. That's where you sit in your lotus posture and you start the breathing until things come about that changes the situation that you're in. So there are technologies that are utilized also. We utilize crystals as actually quantum room temperature computers to be able to not only access maps and guidance from these tools that you have pre-programmed to give you a way to be able to maybe move to a different dimension or go to a different spot, or be able to go into a place that you've been in before in previous trips to get you out of some what may be hot water. Because when you deal with the high doses, or the higher doses, you can be in some difficult areas. There can be some challenging places and points that on lower doses people wouldn't encounter. So you have to practice. You have to be able to take your core inner power, inner structure, inner understanding, and utilize that. And you pit your power against the multiverse, against all that is. And through that, with each excursion, you gain more and more knowledge, more and more confidence, more and more power. And those things that you utilize, certain postures, certain things that what people would call mantras, finger weaving, sacred symbols, all of these things that are utilized today as sidebars are things that you utilize and were utilized in the entheogenic world in ancient times to be able to help you navigate, discipline yourself, and get you out of hot water many times.
So is it like things like crystals or the things you mentioned, mantras, positions, etc.? Are they? Do you think they are referenced, or and they are part of Akasha, or now, or somebody starts to create them and they
well, we glean we glean them from the great record halls and the great worlds that contain information, and the ancestors brought them back and had them inside of the systems. So the finger weaving, such as these type of motions where you're utilizing finger signs, or you're utilizing hand signs, or you're saying sacred words and things like this. This was all gleaned by those who had went before and deposited these knowledges from faraway galaxies and faraway worlds. And when we went into these spaces, into these the Akashic records, some folks call it the Akashic records, but we call it the Akashic records, which is the DMT compendium of knowledge and information that is accessed through mushrooms and ayahuasca and iboga and other tryptamine hallucinogens. We can go in and get those records, play the DVDs and the VHS, and look at the material, the different books, and get these things out and bring them back into our own existence and utilize those things. So they are pre-existent inside of the multiverse. There are gajillions of different areas of study for you to access according to your sensibilities, and how you can utilize your power to be able to access these different realms and different dimensions that exist all over the place.
So you see, if I come back to the question of navigating again, so with everything that you have mentioned, I can't seem to find any information referenced. I digged it a little bit here and there. Is there a way to find it? Do this, it makes that. You take that posture, it brings you there. Work with crystals in that way, and record your information like this, and call it back again like that. Is there anywhere for anyone who is listening us to find this information? Of course, you probably maybe say, okay, do the experience, find out. But before that, the guy jumps in, take whatever he takes, and experience starts, and the guy has the intention to travel to meet, like a menu. I have intention today to work on something, and so this is the tools I'm gonna use. So it's already, in the coconut here, hopefully not deviated, and I have prepared myself well to navigate wherever I want to go. Is there anywhere on planet Earth today, book, website, anywhere where it's well referenced?
Well, not really, because we're in virgin territory, really. Mushrooms have always been hooked to nature and the dictates of nature, of moisture, of being in the right spot, how dryness and evaporation affects the mushrooms, and all those different types of things. So since we're in a place now where people are growing their own mushrooms and have the ability to take as much as they need or as much as they want, we're actually in virgin territory. Most people, and then most of the people writing the books, the clinicians, psychiatrists, psychologists, anthropologists, historians, many of them aren't really deep psychonauts. They're more on the intellectual trail of looking at this thing rather than the experiential portion of it. We're waiting for those people who are going in very deeply and very hard into these different dimensions to start coming back with videos and tapes and books and information on their sojourns. That's one of the reasons why we're having the Detroit Psychedelic Conference next month, the 10th and 11th and 10th, 11th, and 12th of August, is to get people actually going in, doing the work to share their knowledge and information of how they approach this task in dealing with the navigation of the multiverse. Because we're in new territory. You're going into places that not only you haven't been, but probably no one else has ever been. And so there's not a lot of roadmaps into the unknown. You have to go into the unknown and carve your own path, your own road into this multiple wilderness. And things that you encounter, you come back and you record it in your consciousness, and you record it in, if you're utilizing the different technologies such as the Yiming Zoo or the quartz crystals, you utilize those as, again, recording devices to be able to take that information and knowledge of where a particular area is and be able to revisit that area. It's not necessary. It's a tool. You know, you can record it in your consciousness. You can record it in the crystalline structure in your bones. You can record it in the nervous system of your body. So these things are all part of how we move into new territory, into areas of knowledge and information that humans from this side of existence haven't reached it until now. So we're going into places that have never been breached before. So it's a pioneer ship, and it's a learn as you go ship, because there's no guru, shaman, priest, or anyone who can tell you what you're experiencing.
They do. They don't know. Sorry.
No, you're this is the journey of the alone into the alone. And that's why the real work starts when you start journeying deeply and you're alone, because you don't have the mask that you have to put up, that persona that you have to hold up to everyone. If you want to cry, you cry. If you want to shout, you shout. If you want to roll around on the floor, you do that. So there's no mask to hold up to anyone else, the world, or anything else. It's the journey of the alone into the alone. And we're blazing new territory. So you go deep, you go hard, you come back and you tell me.
Mm-hmm. While you were talking, I have this thing popped out in my mind. Is I know you are familiar with Carlos Castaneda books.
Yes.
So Don Juan there was doing a little bit of mapping there. So he, with inorganic beings, organic beings, how to stretch the luminous body and all of that. So there was a little bit of, mapping done in these books. If you feel like commenting on that, please.
Yeah. They were talking about particular guilds or particular sorcery guilds that have a particular way of approaching the mystery, and that's not really solo travel. That's apprenticeship, master and apprenticeship, kind of like the Sith Lord and his apprentice, or the sorcerer and his apprentice. And in Africa, there's three ways of learning. You can learn by being part of the age group societies, which are part of that every young man goes through at a certain age, maybe between 13 and 15. Then there is the secret society, which you join and become part of, kind of like the Masons, but they have sorcery societies, and they put together different protocols on how you deal with what they're trying to show you. And the third way is that you have you apprenticeship yourself to a person of power, and they have a way of conveying knowledge to you. So the Don Juan and Carlos is kind of a blending of the apprenticeship master type of thing, and also kind of like the society, because he always talked about the Toltec sorcerers and the precursors to the Aztecs and the Mayans and what they did in the old time, because you have the old time knowledge, the time before the flood, when before the knowledge was scattered and reorganized, because there were systems that were part of these guilds, part of these different societies that were intact, but the cataclysms that happened that created, the dynamics that we have in the world today, they scattered that knowledge. A lot of the knowledge was it reemerged, and they tried to reconfigure it in places like Egypt and Mesopotamia, Sumeria, Akkadian, Babylon, in India, different places, put the information back together, because you had these great cataclysms that destroyed a lot of the information and a lot of the older areas of knowledge. So we're encountering these plenums of information that gave the old knowledge and information in the multiverse. That's a lot of what we're doing. We're making those reconnections back into places where they left information and where the systems are still intact. So you have to encounter those, then you have to decode those, and then you have to be able to move freely back and forth between those dimensions and this dimension, and still have a conduit to the information that was in the physical sense on Earth, where they wrote things down, were lost.
So can we say that unless somebody somebody like me, who is more I'm not part of any secret society, I'm not in an apprenticeship with a master, I didn't really get what was your first one, the A society or something like that?
Well, age group societies that you learn as a child, that all the young men of the particular group are part of. So just because you're not part of those things doesn't mean that you don't have access to the information, or that you can't blaze the new path, because there are those who were from the beginning, who were from the first phase knowledge. In other words, they went in alone in the dark for the first time, and that's how many of us are going into this whole entheogenic, psychedelic, hallucinogenic realm. We're going in naked, not knowing anything, but gleaning and pulling power and information into ourselves through the contact with these multiple realities, multiple dimensions. And this is the way it was done in the first phase, or the first time of knowledge. So we access those different places. But like I said, it's an art form. It's an art form. It's a discipline. It's not a thing where it's crowned in cement. It's not crowned in cement. It's it's like jazz. It moves. It's fluid. Like that.
Yeah. Yes. Michael, I don't know if you have some questions on your side. I do want to get monopoly.
Of course I do. I've been patiently waiting.
Coming from my side, but if you feel like, please, I can hold it for 2 hours, 3 hours.
No, look, what I wanted to ask first, Kilindi, is I watched you for around about a year on YouTube before I had my first exploration with psilocybin. And that first one was 5 dry grams, and then my second one was 10. And one thing that I love about your wisdom and your knowledge is, while I was in both of those experiences, I felt a very strong, like a presence, and there was like warrior type of energy, very ancient, like almost non-human, almost like before us. It's always there, this feeling, and almost like a kind of sexual type of energy as well mixed in. I didn't feel very much of the lovey-dovey stuff. I felt more like what you speak of. And that's why I felt inclined to always watch your videos, because I actually connect a lot with what you say whenever I'm in those experiences. I also saw a lot of ruins and like imagery of like writing from like what looked like Aztec or African symbology and faces. I see that like a lot recurring, and it feels like a place that, although I'm fearful of it, it feels very like I've been there before. It feels like not alien.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, the thing is that we're on a journey that started before the beginning of this universe. So we have an affinity to those things which are still in different dimensions present, but not in this physical dimension. So we'll see places, faraway lands, faraway planets, different orders of magnitude dealing with the sciences and the martial sciences. So many times people want to make this thing a fun thing, or a thing that is, like you said, nicey and things like that. But it's something that's real. It's something that's ancient. It's something that's powerful. And when we speak to the knowledge of how we discipline ourselves inside of these very exotic realms, and looking at it from the human vantage point is really the most problematic part of it. If we look at it as a human, then we're saying, oh, these things are so large and they're so great and they're so powerful and they're so far away. But if we look from our real eyes of who we really are in our higher self, then it becomes very, very clear that this is the place that we exist in 99.99999% of our existence. This is just a very small piece of a artificial construct that is utilized for learning and experiences that will be uploaded into the higher self, as the higher self downloads information into this physical realm, for us to emerge on the other side as who we really are, which is that higher self. So you're right on point with that. It's a very ancient presence inside of the mushroom world, and that's really what scares people about it. I think Graham Hancock, when he was writing Supernatural, he ended taking a bunch of Liberty Cap mushrooms because he said, he's done ayahuasca and he'd done LSD and he'd done several other compounds, but he said that mushrooms really scared him because there's something there. There's something ancient there. Fungi, mushrooms are 485 million years older than the first plant that ever existed. And that's just on this planet. They're extraterrestrial. They're ultra-terrestrial. They're a construct of organic technology that is older than this universe, and its plenum of information contains multiple universes of knowledge and understanding. And once people start going into the higher doses, start breaching into those places, start what we would say busting up in those spots, then we see that this is something that is far, far deeper and far, far greater than we could have ever imagined.
Kilindi, just looking at like documentaries based on ancient civilizations, whether it's ancient Africa, like South Africa, Göbekli Tepe. You mentioned the Sumerian region as well, going across to like South America. There seems, and Egypt, of course, there seems to be so many clues about mushrooms back in those early days that must have inspired the priests of those societies to pretty much start this process of what we could call science or scientific exploration. And I can't help but feel whenever I'm watching these, ancient documentaries or studying them, that, our schooling system, our own education system doesn't even touch that yet. When in that psilocybin environment, it feels like, for me personally, like I'm in the most purest environment to learn the deep lessons, a kind of special like education. And yet none of our education systems seem to go anywhere near it. And this thing is kind of like still shunned, and it's confusing as to why this happens.
Well, it gives a person personal eye to eye, mouth to ear access to the things that they told us didn't exist, that the magic isn't real, and that those things that you're talking about are dealing with, exotic creatures, novel entities, and things like that don't exist for real. That's just people's imagination or things embedded deep in the psyche. It was, you falling out the crib when you were a baby and, hitting your head, and you saw a black spot, and that black spot eventually turned into the boogeyman, and the boogeyman, extrapolated into something more and more and more, when in reality, these things actually exist. It's like Geiger, the guy who did the artwork for the Aliens movie. When they asked him, how do you think up these different types of worlds? He said, I don't think up these worlds. These worlds exist. I see them. That's how I'm just parroting what I see in altered states of consciousness. And it's the same here. Mushrooms basically built priesthoods, they built religions, they built societies, they built civilizations. Everywhere you find a great temple system, you find mushrooms growing right outside the door or right inside the door. But and so they built, in Cambodia, Angkor Wat, the same mushrooms that they got and ate to build that temple, to lay out the plans from greater temples in the hyperdimensional realms. They just took a blueprint of what they saw and put it on Earth and built it. And that's what Angkor Wat is. When they saw the pre-Kemetic priest or the pre-Egyptian priests went into novel states of consciousness utilizing mushrooms and also the tree of life, which was the Acacia nilotica, an African rue, or what they call Syrian rue, as the monoamine oxidase inhibitor, the knowledge and information of which they went into in these Akashic records or Akashic records, these are the things they brought back. Even when we talk about the family of Ra and how they chose to clothe themselves in reality, they actually saw the man who had the head of a falcon. They actually saw the man who had the head of a jackal, or what they call the Netoru or Orisha, or the gods or the angels, or whatever you want to call them. They actually seen these actual novel creatures and came back and created statues and created paintings or drawings about these things that they saw in the higher realms of consciousness under the influence of these very, very special compounds that are actual brain chemistry that is exogenous, outside of the body brain chemistry. DMT is endogenous and is exogenous, The exogenous portion is in trees and grasses and frogs and human beings and all mammals and all these different types of things. They endogenously make their own hallucinogens. But when you can get an exogenous source, then then you can have a force multiplier. It's kind of like the booster rocket on your spaceship. The first stage gets you so far, then that second stage kicks in, and it propels you out past the atmosphere of the Earth into space. Then the momentum, you will travel into deep space from that momentum. So it's the same thing with the entheogens. I don't take different trips. I may say that in a lecture or something like that, this trip, that trip, but no, I've only been on one trip. I'm still on the first trip that I took. And when I go back in, it's not a continuation. It's the same trip. I'm still traveling. I haven't hit the ground yet. I've been moving for all these years, and it's the same trip. So once you're in, you're in. Once you see them, they see you, and you can't get out because you're in. If that makes any sense to some of the folks that may be listening, once you're in, you're in. And you're on the same trip. These sojourns into the sidebars of what we call reality are the illusionary places of which we visit and vacation from the trip. It's like when in Star Trek, when Picard and them go out so far, they always go to the entertainment planet to just unwind. Always something happens there at the entertainment planet, but that's supposed to be a place where you have vacation and get a chance to get off the bridge and get off the Star Trek or the Enterprise. Get off of that and commune with some other people instead of the ones that you're on normally with when you're doing your duty as a Starfleet officer.
Scott Bogdan says there is no going back. Guys, it reminds me two things. I was attending this ayahuasca session in France by Chile. There was a Chile guys from Chile. They bring some ayahuasca. Sometimes they bring some San Pedro, but they will always remember me by because I always say everything gonna be all right. Everything is. I was saying it in French. Tout va bien. It means everything goes well. So they listen one, two times. They remember. But okay, the main story about not going back and I call it not having a choice, and I love that. I love to be in that position actually. And so I was complaining because I was telling them, come on guys, your ayahuasca is not so strong. your San Pedro is not so strong, and then the guy from Chile will say, Yuri, with his little accent, Yuri, you always want to have your head upside down, So and me to answer him, I was telling him, if I'm sitting and still wondering if it's hitting me or not, it's not strong enough. If I'm still wondering if my mind is okay, it's not okay, this is not strong enough. Come on. And then he understood.
Yeah.
But some people,
Yeah. Well, it's like Don Juan told Carlos. You have to jump into the abyss. Most people stay around the edge and look over the side from a safe vantage point, and you want to be in so far in that you're in, you can't get out. You have to ride this all the way through to the that night's over. So in ayahuasca center, they have tourist doses of ayahuasca.
Is it me, or there is sorry to interrupt you, there is some sound problem or something like that? Can you hear it, or is it me, or is it you guys can hear it as well?
There was a little bit of interference, but seems like it's a little bit better now.
Okay. Is it okay now? Yeah.
Maybe it's Kilindi's headset.
It's on your side, Kilindi, I think.
Maybe the fan on my computer.
Okay.
Yeah. It could be that it's a little loud. But am I pretty clear now?
Yeah, it's coming across quite loud.
Quite loud.
I think it is the fan, but that might be their Kilindi. I think that's fixed now.
Okay. Well, as I said, you have to jump into the abyss, and most people want to stay around the edges, and they know that most people want to stay around the edges. They don't want to go too far, or too. One of the things that people always say, "Well, I don't know if I'm going to come back," So they gauge the doses for what they think they're going to encounter and what people want to do. It's just like in mushroom gatherings where you have multiple people there. You don't want to you don't want to give them 20 grams because that would defeat the purpose of having a group, because nobody's going to be in the same spot.
Bye.
So you give folks where they're still partially here, and since most people don't know what a full entheogenic dose of mostly anything is, they can only tell you what from their experience, what they're going through, and how profound it's been on 4 grams and things like that. But there's an exponential difference between 4 grams or an eighth, 3.5 grams or whatever, is an exponential difference between that and 10 grams. And between 10 and 20, there's a wide field of inclusion there. And between 20 and 30, and between 30 and 40, these are orders of magnitude greater than the preceding. It no longer is in the human realm. It's no longer in the realm of the known. It becomes so exotic, so different, so deep, so dark, so unusual that there's no groundwork that can ground you to anything. It's people always talking about, well, I want to stay grounded, or maybe I should smoke a joint to, kind of ground me and things like that. There's no grounding. There's nothing to attach to. There's nothing to hold on to. There's no one you can call. You're there alone, and you have to meet everything that you encounter fully lucid, So it's not a thing where it's not a game. It's not a let's have fun. Let's look at Beavis and Butthead. Let's get a few grams of mushrooms. Let's look at Beavis and Butthead, or let's go to the doof party or to the rave and get some mushrooms and drop a tab of acid and drink half a bottle of Hennessy and get some MDMA and smoke a joint on top of that and listen to the music, listen to the party, let's see the lights. No, it is going into the mystery of existence, the mystery of consciousness, and how it implores itself into the consciousness of a being searching through the multiverse to find out those pertinent questions of what am I? Where did I come from? Where am I going? How do I do this? How do I move into these places to be able to find out what I'm seeking?
So Kilindi, can you maybe dwell a little bit? I mean, I think you dwelled enough, but this increase of dosage. It's quite a polemic you know, and guys who start to research on that, they will have they will find contradictory information to what you have just said as well. I just saw some girl yesterday being interviewed by the same guy who interviewed you. You know, the kind of blondie guy, very nice smile. And he was interviewing this old woman. She's 70-year-old and she does mushroom gatherings in Europe. And she was saying, no, beyond certain limit, absolutely not. It doesn't do anything more than that. But you were saying, yes, it does, and it's exponential.
Well, most people who haven't done it usually say that.
Yeah, as well.
And sometimes sometimes when you go into higher doses, the first time you may not even be able to remember it, but you have to keep pushing and pressing on. But you know, most of the people, you know, and I don't know who this person is, so I can't say what their experience is. But you know, in my experience dealing and talking with people, most of the people who say, well, you know, anything over 5 grams is a waste of mushrooms because it's not going to do anything more if you take 10 as opposed to 5. And that just hasn't been my experience. It has been the experience of many people whom I talk to. But most of the people that I talk to that say that, well, there's no difference. There's no sense in doing 25 grams, anything like that. And I say to them, have you ever done 25 grams? And they say, no, it's no reason to do 25 grams because I've done 5 grams and it's just been amazing and life-changing and all of those different types of things. You know, I'm talking beyond amazing and beyond life-changing. You know, it won't hurt you. Psilocybin has a high LD50, you know. So, yeah. I mean, bite the bullet, take the plunge. Try 25 grams one night in the dark alone by yourself and see if it's the same as 5 grams. I don't think so. I think it is, you know, and it is in my experience, a big difference between 25 and 5. You don't have any place to, you don't have any, like I said, you don't have any place to go. You don't have anything to hold on to. You're no longer in your room. Mm-hmm. You're off someplace standing on a planet that you would not have imagined, or you're in some place that's so deep and so dark and so unusual and so unexplainable and inexplicable that, you know, fear abounds, you know. As I said before, when you're there in the basement in the dark, and it's the triple thick darkness because light does not exist. It is below the photon. It is below the Planck length. You know, so no light doesn't even exist. It's so dark down there that it's unimaginable. But you feel a presence. You feel a presence that's there. A malevolent presence. A large, vicious, malevolent presence breathing on your neck. What do? Do you turn around and strike out? Or do you sit in that lotus posture that you learned at the yoga, at the intramural yoga class at the back of the university on Saturday nights? Do you sit in that lotus posture and do your breathing and center yourself and control yourself so that fear doesn't overwhelm you and make it more difficult? So, you know, it's you know, it's everybody's different. Like I say, I can't say what a person experienced and what a person does not experience. But I can tell you in my experience, there's a big difference between 5 grams and 25 grams.
How do you recognize an entity as not so good one? They don't come and say, "Oh, I'm a bad one. Careful." They don't say it, right? So how do you recognize? Is there a way quickly to have a spot on without confusing it with our own?
No,
you see what I mean?
You're just suspicious of everything and everyone because you don't know. Because there can be, they don't have to be dark and hairy and look like the Lon Chaney, the Wolfman. You know, they can be beautiful. They can be ethereal. They can look like what we would think angels or goddesses or whatever gods are, and still be the malevolent entities. So your guards are up on all, at least mine are, because I look at this as, I look at it as warriorship. I look at it as sorcery, because, you know, even the ayahuasca people, most people that deal with ayahuasca, they're thinking about healing and, you know, bubbles and fairies and things like that. When most ayahuasca is sorcery, where they're, you know, making people's goat die and, you know, taking their wives and, you know, making people sick and throwing darts in them and things like that, because it's mostly sorcery. And, you know, the love factor that people see, that people talk about, is only, we have to emphasize, only half the picture. There is also a malevolent side inside of this. Everything is not for your benefit. And those are the places where you learn at. You learn in those places also. The thing about psilocybin is that it's conscious, and it knows that it's being taken, and it merges with your consciousness. So in the beginning, psilocybin, you know, I think Terrence Mc Kenna would say all the time that psilocybin is real easy and good with beginners. It'll show you universes being born and beautiful flowers with colors that have never been in the visual range of human beings, and water of the sweetest taste, and all of these different type of things to draw you in. Then it will at some point drop the hammer on you. You know, okay, tonight you've been with the fairies and all of that, and it's been wonderful. I'm getting ready to drop a little bit of something on you and go left field, and it will go left field on you. Now, those are the times, number one, that you learn the most, but those are the times you say, I ain't never going to do this again. That was my last time. And I've said it many times. I'm going to take all these mushrooms and throw them in the trash, and I'm never going to do this again. It's over. It's a wrap. But then, you know, it calls you back. You know, your consciousness calls you back. You have to know, at least in my case, you know, I have to know what this thing is about. I want to go where no one has gone. I want to see what no one has seen. And I want to understand really what this whole thing is about. What's the purpose of all this? Why am I here? Where did I come from? You know, you know, I have women in the women's goddess movements. Well, you know, they say, well, you came from us. No, I didn't come from a woman. I came through a woman. You know, just because you know, biscuits in the oven ain't ovens, they're biscuits, and they're put in the oven. So it's the same thing with me. I want to know where I came from, what I am, where I'm going, how I'm going to get there. And the best way to do that is to explore my own consciousness, because that's all that I have. You know, I get into talks about the ego all the time. You know, the I am that I am. That's all that I have. That's the only way that I can liaison with this profound mystery that we find ourselves in. Because I am who I am. I am that I am.
There was a friend of mine who was asking this question, and I have a different opinion as well on that. You know, we often hear it's like one part of the effects of somebody who takes the mushrooms or some psychedelics, ego death. So we hear it very often.
Yeah.
What's your take on it?
I'm not a person who subscribes to the whole ego death theory.
Mm-hmm.
If you know, I myself, you know, I think it's basically psychobabble from the late 50s and early 60s, when psychiatrists and psychologists wanted to have a way of defining the way that their patients were viewing themselves from the inside. So no, I don't. If I don't have an ego, what else do I have? You know, you might as well not be, because you're not. you know, and the ego, the id and the super ego and all that kind of stuff is basically, Freudian, and it's not part of my experience. As much as I take and as far as I go, I still hang on to myself because it's hooked in connection with my higher self through the super Wi-Fi, or whatever you want to call it, the super Bluetooth. We're connected, and that's the true self. And the true self is no different than this self, but they're just feeding one another back and forth. One is becoming, and the other is pulling that which it is into itself and becoming. So, I don't subscribe to the ego death, and people will, and they will say, well, you have that's all ego.
That's what I was thinking.
I'll accept that. That doesn't put me in a moral dilemma.
To me, most of the time, I don't care what others say. Is whatever they think, right or wrong. But so yeah, and I don't subscribe to that as well. And then I'm thinking as well. Look, we don't really know who we are. So what happened to the guy who has never seen his legs? For the first time of his life, he stand up from the bed with, shit, I have legs now. Oh, so it's part of me now. So he would think, you see what I mean? It's a realization of sometimes different possibilities of what I could be, or what I am, or how flexible am I. So I think maybe the guys got a little bit flexible. Just went a little bit sideways, realized, oh shit, I have just changed, and then thinking, who am I? All of a sudden, and then the thought pattern starts to biting his own tail, and maybe they come back and think that they'll have lost who they were, but maybe it's just part of us to be capable to switch, to shift. I like to call it shifting from one place to another, and so you know what happened to me. Tell me if it's it happened to me a few times like that. I was with a couple of friends in Lake Tobar, and not high dose of mushrooms. I have no idea. The guys are bringing pockets for one guy, and I take 3, 4, 5 of them. And they are laughing, they're scared that they take all of them like that. So I don't know, maybe it was for 5 people, but that's okay. I'm big boy. So at one point of time, but I had this experience a few times. So I just seclude myself and go to my room, lay down, and close eyes. There is this kind of sound that I start to hear. And it sounds, a bit like the computer, the desktop that you put on a speaker, and you start to hear all this dig, like a big orchestra. And the more I focus on that, it starts to grow. It grows on decibel. It's quite loud. It takes a bit of effort to stay in with that machinery. And then on that particular day, for example, I went into a kind of space where it was kind of rivers, or you can like bands of different colors, and that maybe it's me who were imagining that, but what I understood is it was beings, so it's and that band or river flowing, it was past, future, present of a guy. I have no idea. I'm just launching it. You, Kilindi, if this sounds, is it something to pay attention to, or and this vision? So, and at that point of time, I had no sense of body at all. and I had kind of 360-degree view. So I was not looking in front or behind. I was just aware of all of that thing, and I was part of it. So I could not really see my band, but I don't know. I was aware of all of these things at the same time. It was a bit strange, but these sounds came back to me a few times.
Well, I mean, I've been in those types of spaces before also, and sounds. You know, I think we're in a big computer anyway, or really a small computer that mimics the bigness. You know, as far as the simulation and embedded simulations within simulations, and being able to space where you hear part of the machinery, you know, and not actually, because it's so smooth and so small that you can't really physically hear it, but you feel the vibrational signature of how this is bringing reality into existence. That those infraparticle intelligences, the super servers that build the macro universe, are part of a part of that sound and part of that that way of viewing as far as the sight is concerned. So it's just accessing more refined levels of the vibratory rates which create reality, or what we call reality, inside of this simulation, which is embedded in simulations inside of simulations. So if you got a gajillion simulations in one base real reality, you're more likely to be in that that side of the gajillions that is in the simulatory area of existence, rather than in that one base real reality, of which things are a little more a little cleaner, because, you know, each simulation is going to be just a little bit different, feel a little bit different, you know.
And you know what question popped out to me at that point of time, and this is the main thing that I wanted to discuss about today, about how to navigate, etc. I was telling myself, because it was at the same time I was seeing the past, future, and this flowing kind of thing, and I don't know why it came to my head that I could be capable to modify things. But then I said to myself, Yuri, better not. You have no idea what you are doing. So I didn't.
Start a butterfly effect.
So hold on. My question to you, what can we do? No, coming back to the navigating in this kind of space, for example, or another kind. But more to that one. Is there a way to navigate through it? Is there something more than just observing it that is possible to do? I don't know if you had this experience.
Definitely you can manipulate things while you're there. You can change it while you're there. Now, if you want that to blend over into this three-dimensional 5 sense reality that we're there, then you're talking about changing a lot of things. You know, maybe bump you off into a separate reality, a separate dimension that is not this one. So yes, you can manipulate things there. That's part of how you get through the night, by manipulating things. You know, I'm a martial artist, a warrior, so I manipulate things. I may be in a battle with something. You know, my most famous battle was with a jinn by the name of Olba, who, you know, challenged me, and we went through it. And now he's spinning somewhere out in the darkness in a bottle with a cork on it, where he can't get out, spinning end over end, endlessly, forever and ever. You know, out there. So yes, you can manipulate the matrix, but you know, I've been in those spaces and I've encountered some of the things out there that, you know, are locks on the mechanism. I went into the death realm to bring somebody back from the other side, and it was like, you know, don't do that. You can't change that. Don't do it. Don't do it. If you do it, it's gonna be worse than what it is now. That type of thing. So I ended up not doing it and just disciplined myself into biting the bullet on this side and waiting for the time that I cross over to be able to make those connections again, other than the connections that I make with that person in our sojourns in the multiverse, in our place that we have together to share. But that doesn't take away the day-to-day feelings of missing that person, or you know, having it where that person is not around you, where you can call them on the phone, or you know, roll over and touch them and things like that. Doesn't make up for that, but you still have access, and to breach those codes that are looked at as things you shouldn't do. You know, you have to make that decision, but it'll change things immeasurably.
The thing is, at the point of experience, there is no police to tell you, oh, you should do this or you shouldn't do that. You know, that's why I was okay. I feel like I get the butterfly effect, like you said. Yeah, maybe I could do it. I didn't do because I had no idea. So I was telling myself,
you can do it. Yeah, you can do it. But like I said,
But how to know if it's good?
It can make things worse. Well, you have to do it to see. There's nobody there with the stick saying
there's nobody to tell you, yeah,
that you can't do it. You know, you just have to figure it out for yourself. Like, no, I don't think I need to do this because it's something else is going to happen that I wouldn't have imagined or put into the rule book. So I'll let this one go and move on.
Michael, if you allow me, I have one more. I have plenty of questions. I just ask one, and then if you feel like asking something, go on. You know, Kilindi, I'm a boxer. I was thinking to practice martial arts at some point, but then I met this really wonderful individual. Alex is a Russian guy just like me. And he teaches boxing. Oh my God, it's just you know, he teaches fundamentals so well, and so I just stick to boxing now.
Mm-hmm.
But what I wanted to ask you, you know, we met each other. It was through dreaming experiences. So he was saying, oh, this is an omen. You know, I met you. So I have this group, you know, Lucidity for All. You saw it, and then I teach dreaming practices, astral projection out of body, etc. And then I was drawing this parallel. Tell me what you think. I know you are aware about lucid dreaming, so I don't need to explain to you what that is. But I was drawing that parallel, you know, between the dreaming experiences and maybe psychedelic experiences. And on some, I have not gone to 30 grams or 40 grams. I'm honest. I've been there more to 8, 9, 10 grams. So not that big, but with some exercise, you know. I'm a yoga teacher. I don't teach it anymore. So with all these practices, like you was mentioning, mantra, or that. So probably I was pulling these experiences there. Like I was mentioning, you know, the sounds or that, but focusing on that, drawing the parallel between the dreaming experiences and the psychedelic experiences. So I was talking with Alex, and we had a few beers on that day, so I had to really focus to explain. And Alex was telling me, why do you have to draw the parallel? So I told him, oh, it's with a few beers. Yeah. So, and when he drinks a bit of beers, his mind is becoming a little bit more stringent. So, and he was saying, no, just tell me very simply. So just one word pop out from my mouth. It was curiosity. So he says, okay, I get it. Okay, so no, wait. He says, no. He says, I get it. It's just curiosity. So no, wait. So I make him listen to me, and then I said, okay, look, me as a human being, since I'm born, I was always interested, to do more than just sleep, eat shit, and do it again. I was expecting, the mystery to be real, not just in the cartoons. And so one thing that I came across were dreaming experiences, which took it, that was one door that opened my experiences to things which are as real as real gets. And dreaming experiences are actually feeling more real than the waking experience, more often than not. Sensory input can be higher, etc. And then I met the mushrooms in Lake Toba, and then another door to experiences which are very real. Why I say very real? Because, for example, one very good example is we are sitting 2, 3, 4, 5 of us laughing. I'll tell you just a small story like that. So we are all laughing, and all of a sudden we have this guy popping out from the dark and comes up where we are, and his neck is that it's from the shoulders to the apparent chin. Maybe the neck can be some are short necked, long neck. This guy was double. We all saw that guy. He was double. He was like really long neck and looking like that. He came. He stood in front of us for a while, not saying anything. Then he went and talked with us for a while, and then he left. And then all of us, we looked at each other, and we all saw him. So it's the experience is quite real. And I mean, for those who are listening to us, without, if we say that we went to these dimensions and see these, bands of colors, anybody can say, product of your imagination. Why not? Yeah. Okay. And another example, we were sitting, and then another guy comes in. We are laughing. It was, party kind of. But these things were popping out. And then another guy passed by, and the guy that we know, the guy who works at the place where we were staying, and then he came and he started to speak French. Indonesian guy. It's a small guy, it's about 12, 13-year-old, something like that. He comes in and he starts to speak in French. Not just in French, with a Parisian accent. And we are all looking at him, this Indonesian guy who speaks broken English at the maximum, what he could learn in the village in Lake Toba, Indonesia. And that was it. And now he speaks French with a Parisian accent, saying that he has been studying in France, etc. We all look at each other. What's going on? He never told us that. And it was not the first time we went there. All of a sudden, he went to Paris at 13-year-old. So we are all tripping the same way, seeing the same thing. And then worse than that, he makes a few steps. He goes further, and it's chalets. So the hotel is just small houses, Indonesian houses, very beautiful place. And then he walks further. There is a Japanese couple living there on holidays. And when he started to speak in Japanese to them, we were gone. We were just, what is going on? And we are hearing the same thing. It's strange. Guys pop out of nowhere, and they look strange. I don't know what you have to say.
That was pretty long. I don't know which way to jump in on this, but I will talk about the dreaming aspect. I've done a lot,
Dreaming, yes, yeah, that's the main one.
A lot of the dreaming work. You know, I read Robert Monroe's Journeys Out of Body long time ago, 47 years ago or whatever, and it had a profound effect on me. I worked on my dreaming technique for a long time. So there are correlations between DMT dreaming and, of course, the DMT in the mushrooms and the smokable, and N-dimethyltryptamine. So there's a crossover. And then you have dream herbs, not only in South America, but you have dream herbs in South Africa, such as ubalawu, which you take the first night, your dreams become more vivid. You take it the second night, and it just exponentiates that. Your dreams are crisp, and then you take it the third night, and you have volition inside of your dreams. So, even though it was haphazard with the dreaming techniques, and I use some of Casteneda and some other things, finding your hands in your dreams, looking at your hands and looking away, looking at your hands, looking away, and things like that, and different techniques to hold on to your lucidity in the dream. Your volition inside of the dream is the most important thing. Once you get it, of course, the time between just crossing over into REM sleep, I utilized audio-visual entrainment where you had the lights flashing and the ears countering that. And, so I had what they call a mind machine, a light machine, which I utilized to access different mind states, alpha, beta, delta, theta, and all those different types of things like that. And I've done those on mushrooms and had those things to, activate dreaming, things like that. So it's very, very similar, even though approached from a different way. There's similarities there and crossovers there also. But to be right on the money, right on the button when I want to go, without the long, drawn out energy that's put into straight up lucid dreaming, I go with the entheogens. And I think that the dreams are just like icing on the cakes that you get every once in a while, where the entheogens are the cake, and you can just, you can plan it out on a Saturday night, and it's gonna, it's gonna hit, and you know where you're gonna get into it at, and that be that. So the dreaming things and the dream journals and all those things, I don't do anymore. I just basically do the mushroom, because it's I don't want to spend as much time getting in as I'm in. I want to spend the least time getting in and just get in and work from inside.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So that's how I view it. I think that we were walking on the plains and grasslands of Africa, and that we encountered the mushroom. We ate the mushroom, went through its different phases until we got to the higher doses where it became a mystery. And without any precursors, we started getting information that we downloaded, that we put into our present reality, that built houses for us and technologies, the wheel, all of these different things that we had no prior knowledge or information of. We weren't just walking around in the grass, eating grub, stealing meat from scavengers who had stolen, who had finally got a piece from the predators. What do we do? We went straight from that to saying, I want to build a pyramid, for no obvious reason other than, it was just something to do. No, it was something that they saw and that they put into their world from another dimension.
So can we conclude by saying that we agree that dreaming experiences and the entheogenic experience offer the same kind of door with potentially the same possibilities, with the only difference that dreaming experiences can be limited by the time or by the access techniques of the guy. Is it correct?
I would say that there are many different crossovers. I think, and many different points to where they blend together, and that tripping is very, very close to dreaming. And if you have the lucidity and the experience and discipline to be able to deal with some levels of how to control the exogenous trip, the mushroom trip, because the mushroom has an agenda also. It wants to be in the human body. It wants a consciousness to be able to work with all of those different types of things. So you're working with another entity inside of that. Yeah.
So that's another difference. Yes, that's another difference.
Yeah, another difference. Yeah.
Correct.
Because you got the same. Because you have the same with dark room technologies, where you're in the dark for 7, 14, 21, 40 days, and you start pumping melatonin, and that melatonin starts getting converted into pinealine and DMT and harmine and harmala, and you go into psychedelic states from just darkness, very, very close to. From what I hear, because I haven't been in darkness for 40 days and things like that, I haven't had time to do it. That's why I do mushrooms. I ain't got 40 days to be in the dark, because I gotta eat and cut the grass. Just one long Saturday night's good enough for me. But there are places like in Turkey, the Anatolian civilization that was there, that stayed in caves generation after generation, where the regular family folks stayed up in the higher echelons, but you had priesthoods and explorers who delved in the dark in the deeper portions of the cave, who stayed in constant psychedelic states by pumping their melanin, pumping their DMT endogenously in darkness. So that's why you had pyramids and labyrinths and caves and things like that people went into for the darkroom technologies. And then those super psychonauts would go into the darkness for 40, 60, 80 days, and then take exogenous compounds, mushrooms, DMT, things like that, inside of the darkness on top of 80 days in darkness, and just get that booster rocket, like I said earlier, take that booster rocket into deep space.
Maybe all they had to do is take the 40s without going to the dark room. Just take everything that the tribes gets. I eat it alone for tonight. And tomorrow is gonna be you, or whoever, unless they have unlimited supply and they get a big cow crowd. Let's multiply the cows. So we can all enjoy our days without doing too many nights. Multiply the cow, multiply the mushrooms, and just take your 30s. Make it more simple.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I just want to say, okay, whoever is listening, yes, me personally, I'm not pushing anyone to do the mushrooms or anything like that. I think it's personal. You guys do what you like. I hope it's clear. Whoever is listening, you have your own authority, responsibility to take care of yourself, and this is in no case to push anyone to do anything. It's just sharing what we have experienced. Yes, Michael. Sorry.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask something, Yuri, before we wrap up. I know it's starting to get late over in Kilindi.
It's 1 hour and a half. Yeah.
Kilindi, I just wanted to ask you, in your opinion, the fear that we encounter when we're in the psilocybin realm, that space, as the dose increases and things start to become less tangible from a human standpoint, as that fear rises up inside us, do you think, because we're moving further away from our own humanity, and that's what we're afraid of, because we're trying to hold on to what we recognize? Or do you think it's something different to that?
Well, I think at certain doses, when you get so high that the human fear leaves, most of the fear is based upon the fear of abandonment and death and things like that. But once you are past the human understanding of death and abandonment, that you understand from a very intimate point that you can't be abandoned because you're alone anyway. And all the things that you do that are going to have purpose or meaning in the multiverse is that that you are alone. So you can't be abandoned. You were never hooked to anything to be abandoned from. You've always been alone. So the fear, the human fear of death and things like that, because one thing that psychedelics teaches you is that there's only one thing impossible in the multiverse, and that's to die. You know, you may get caught in some really nasty places, but you ain't gonna die. You know, you'll just be someplace else. If you go out there and walk in the middle of the street, get hit by a truck, you may be dead to your surrounding friends, but you're just knocked into someplace different, you know, so you can't die. So that fear leaves you very quickly, moving up into the denser understandings of what these realms are.
And you mentioned earlier on in this discussion about things that we shouldn't or maybe shouldn't do in reference to maybe other entities that we may have shared life with in this realm that have left this realm. Do you believe that even in the high dosage areas that some kind of contact can be made with other realms, like or other entities that are in different realms that did share space with us in our lifetime?
Oh yeah. Well, you have the ancestral realms and things like that, and where family is and places like that. So yeah, I visit my people who have passed on from this realm on occasion. You know, most of the time when I go to a trip, I'll stop off and say hello and get a chance to be with those who I care about who are on the other side. So yes, contact can be made. That was one of the reasons for utilization of these things, is that our folks, ancestors, our group, you know, we get a chance to be able to commune with them and visit with them on the other side. And that's really one of the best things about it. When you're not exploring, when you're visiting, you know, like you got a aunt in California, you know, your aunt isn't here. She's not where you are. But when you go to California, you can visit her for a little while. And don't overstay your welcome, and keep it moving. So yes, definitely.
And you also mentioned pre-flood civilizations, Kilindi. Do you think that the civilizations that arose after the flood, do you think that the priesthood or people, the ruling class in that phase of our history, through mushrooms, tapped into what may have been lost, and we're only just kind of getting to a point where we can understand that? Or do you think there were a few survivors that actually helped to proliferate that knowledge to certain aspects?
Well, I'm under the same kind of mindset that it was jump started, but we still utilize mushrooms for access, along with those who had knowledge of the pre-flood architecture and technology that helped jumpstart areas, because most of the what we call the ancient civilizations that we have now they basically just popped out of nothing. There were, when agriculture just popped out, and when megalithic building started out of nothing. You got people who are walking around in the grass, without underwear on. Then all of a sudden they're building Göbekli Tepe and different megalithic sites around the world, Baalbek, and temples on top of destroyed temples, like the Temple of Edfu in ancient Egypt, Kemet, which is temple on top of temple on top of temple on top of temple. They've either some cataclysm happened that destroyed them, or they just were so old that they melted into the earth, and they recopied the hieroglyphs from the previous temple and built the new temple with the knowledge and information from the previous civilizations that came. So when you talk about the Younger Dryas, and you talk about that the impacts on the North American ice shelf and the North Atlantic current changing because of ice, fresh water going into the salt water, changing the saline configuration of the oceans and seas, which drove the climate change. Because when you put all this fresh water into the oceans, it's going to change how the heat is distributed from the ocean into the atmosphere. And then you had so many civilizations that flooded out in one day. The Indonesian archipelago because all of that land is underwater, where you have pyramids and temples and knowledge. It was inundated water that came over, and now you only have the beach in an island, Philippines, the little island you see the tops of that was in the olden times continuous land mass. And off the shores of any Canadian civilization, 400 yards, 500 yards out, you'll find sunken cities, because this all happened in one afternoon. And those survivors who may have been on high ground, who may have been in Africa, because Africa sits on some place, so it didn't get hit as hard as the many of the other places, So it was jump-started from surviving men and women of knowledge who shared that technology, trying to jumpstart the civilizations back into high culture. So, you have those type of things that went on. And so that knowledge is still there in the record halls of the DMT records. So that information is still there. It's not lost of anything we did at that particular time. Any skill, any knowledge set can reemerge if we so choose to tap into that and bring back those different technologies, or move into new areas of technology that would be something that is brand new, or something that we've never seen before.
Yeah, I find that fascinating, absolutely fascinating, and how it may tie in with psilocybin and how that helped to. That's just an incredible topic to explore.
I saw you were showing these pictures of the statues on Easter Island, and oh my God, it's so, the nose, the mushrooms, when they come out, they're a little bit thick, and then they get a little bit thinner, and then the cup start to come out here, right? And then the statues are done in a way that it really looks like mushroom. So the base of the mushroom comes out, and then you have the mushroom, and then I was thinking, and then our eyelashes, look like gills, the gills under the mushroom. So it's where the spores are coming out, So actually our face, and you look on the many paintings, even some Christian painting, you see always, this line here going, and then here will be another, this line here. Sometimes they really insist on that geometry, that we have actually on the face, and the whole thinking and belief that we actually have evolved from the fungi,
Well,
I had one day.
Yeah, we definitely have fungal genes in our
in the DNA.
We definitely have fungal genes. We're part fungi.
Kelly Matthew says we have mushroom in our DNA.
Yes.
There was one. I had this trip at some point. So I was with mushrooms in Lake Toba. It's always in Lake Toba, because in Malaysia it's illegal, so you can't get mushrooms here. But Indonesia, it's all over the place. So I was there, and then it was at some point I put some music. Was listening to some music, and then the music stopped, and I opened my eyes and I look at my hands, and I saw myself as kind of fungi plant that took me a while to digest. Kilindi, I had some questions. That I don't want to forget to ask you. One of them, okay. You talked about the crystals.
Yeah.
And that this can be the tool of somebody who is exploring to register. Is it a memory device? Is it a navigating device? It's a computer. Yeah. Can we connect to other guys like you through, let's say, I tell my crystals, please connect to Kilindi, and we connect in some ways there? What is possible?
Yeah, well, you just look at it like you have a computer that is on the internet, and you utilize it like that. That's how the internet led out of the earlier technologies. It's part of the mind, is part of the consciousness of how we put things together. We put them together how they are they're put together in multiple realities. So the computer that we have now, of course, is just a baby computer, but that's how the big computers, which are really the small computers, work. So it's the same thing. You download information, you got your hard drive, you can you can format your disk, you can, all of those different type of things.
Same. So wait. Let's go technical. So, yeah. Sorry. So first, is it what kind of crystal? Is it quartz? Is it another kind of crystal?
We're utilizing quartz crystal because it's readily available. It holds it holds more information that you can put into it. You can put everything in this universe into one small quartz crystal, as far as information is concerned. No, it doesn't matter about the size, no, because you're going to have more memory in that crystal than there are atoms in the universe, as they say. You'll have more access points in that crystal, yeah. So it's regular quartz crystals. We also utilize the Yiming Zhu, which is a exotic crystal that glows of its own volition, and some folks are using it in lightless places to have light when they need it. I see very well in the dark, but the quartz crystals and others I utilize as if you are into Star Wars and you've saw the last Star Wars movie, there's a little robot that's a ball with an eye on top, and it had the map to where Luke Skywalker was. The quartz crystals do that. They kind of do like that. They project a map into your field of vision, and you utilize that map to go into the map and that'll take you to the place that you want to get to. It's kind of like the mask. If you see African masks, they look like mushrooms, and then the eyes, what they do is project a augmented reality into the community so that you see what the person who's taken the mushrooms and has the mask on sees. He projects it in the community so that there's a shared experience of augmented reality. And it's the same with, with other areas of informational structure that you're trying to utilize, like a quartz crystal or something like that. It can project, just like the augmented reality that they have with the Google glasses or virtual reality. It'll project into the atmosphere the information. And you just go into that information, and that information will be liberated to your consciousness so that you can either go to that place and explore it, be able to set up where that information can be created in your environment. It's no different than the hieroglyphics, metal nature, or that type of thing, where at certain doses, the characters become animate. Another dose, the characters come off the wall into your environment. And at higher doses, you go into the wall, into their world, and your environment collapses in on itself until you reemerge into that particular reality again.
So we get that pet crystal, and we keep it aside during the trips and during our daily life. Make it into pendant. Is there anything else to add on how to use them in particular, or everyone will naturally find out?
Well, the crystal in itself is just, it doesn't have any information in it. It has information of its growth, the world it's on, and things like that. But you need to first format the crystal, take all of the old information out, and then you start putting in information. And you do that by taking it with you on your trips in close proximity, and it will record the sojourns that you utilize in your trips. It'll record that. And then you can call for that information back at a later time on another trip.
How do you format, like those lithotherapy and guys bury in the ground or put under the moon or sunlight or put it in salt water? How do you format?
You can put it in salt water, for several hours. Then you rinse it off, and that will clear it off if it doesn't have a code on it. If it doesn't have where you can't get into it. Such as if I have my crystal, if you got a hold of my crystal, you couldn't erase it without the codes to be able to get into it. And you couldn't access the information inside it unless you had the password to get inside of it. It's the same as a regular computer in that sense.
So how do we quote it, and how do we put a password?
Well, we have a method that we're doing it. That's why we're sharing transdimensional crystals with folks that are already formatted with information and maps in it, and also the password system isn't so much like you tap a password into it. The password is it's coalescing with your DNA. In other words, your DNA unlocks it. So someone with a different DNA wouldn't be able to unlock it unless, it could be family members and things like that you could share it with. And you just have to you just tell the crystal that you wanted to share the information with a particular person, maybe your son, or your daughter or whatever, to be able to share information with.
So it's a bit like Windows. If you didn't put the password, then there is none. If you put one, then you have one.
Well, it's best to password your password your information. Password your trips.
Password your trips, yeah. And the coating?
The what?
The coating. You talked about the coating. Before you format you cannot format a crystal, you cannot access if it has a coating. So there's a coated with something. Then if you put it in the salt water, coating. Sorry, my accent, yeah.
Yeah, you're talking about the cleansing of it and the codes that are put in.
Codes. Yeah. How do you put the codes?
Okay, the codes are like the passwords. What I mean is, you put your code in, you put your password in. That's what I was saying.
So it cannot be cleansed once you put the code in?
Unless you take the code off. Just like I said, just like a computer. It's made it's the same way. You can take your password off, and then somebody can get in, and then once they're in, they can erase your, reformat it. But if you don't give them the codes, the passwords, they can't get in, and they can't, format your disk or manipulate your information or see your information or anything like that. And these passwords and codes are unbreakable. If they had quantum computers couldn't, if they had fully active quantum computers, AIs, they couldn't break these codes.
Okay, so that is a little bit of so the advantage of using crystals, we can get privacy and we can get more focused journeys, more because
I said it's a tool. It's not it's a tool that you can use to revisit. It's a tool that you can use to be able to liberate certain areas of technology from the multiverse in through the crystal into your environment. You can see things, technologies, craft, blueprints, plans, ways to manipulate reality inside of the constructs that we're in. It's a tool.
Is it possible to download from one crystal to another?
Yes, that's how we put the maps in and information in. We use crystals that download from one to the other. That's in the beginning before it's password protected, because you can't just take a crystal and download to another one if it doesn't have if you don't have the codes, the passwords to get in.
Yeah. Okay.
So because the concept works exactly how the computers work, because that's where they get the concepts for the computer and the passwords and all those different type of things from.
Okay. So on one side we have the Akasha with all that is in it and all the navigation tools that we have in it, with the things that you mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, with the mantras, positions, fingers, and all of that. And then we have another one now, is the crystals. Is there anything else like that? Any other tool? Anything else that we didn't mention yet?
Oh, I mean, there are lots of different tools. There are you have wooden computers, you have rock computers, you have the manipulation of water, smoke. All these different type of things are relics of power, are tools of utilization inside of these realms. If you can call. That's why some. You have some folks that walk around with a lot of regalia and different things they have. Some have gourds full of
feathers,
gourds full of water, feathers, all those different type of things. I'm basically naked myself. I take my crystal in on occasion. I take my Yumin Zuo in on occasion, but not all the time. Because I don't want things to become. You can become too dependent on a thing, and if you don't have a thing, then you can. Shortchange yourself, like, oh man, I don't have my crystal with me. What do I do now? That type of thing. So I try to keep it balanced. I know that those external things are just internal ways of mnemotically remembering what's already inside of my consciousness.
It's a tool. It's a tool.
Yeah.
Clear. It's a tool. Yeah. I wanted to ask you. It's a very short one. You mentioned, because for things that I keep myself busy with, the dreaming and all that. You mentioned the African dream herb.
Yes.
Can you repeat one more time the name, and do you know the scientific name of it?
I don't know the scientific name of it. I know it's ubalawu. I know you can get it from some of the herb. You can get it online. Okay. Ubalawu. You can get
it
on
word, huh?
You can get it on ubalawu.
Okay.
You can buy it. You can purchase it. You can grow it in a pot.
That'll be nice.
Yeah.
I have a small garden on the balcony. I have a lot of passion fruits. I can put them below. Why not? Huh? I use rosemary.
They have several. Yeah, they have several different ones. And it goes across different ethnic family groups. So one group may call it one thing, but in South Africa, I believe the Zulu and a couple others call it the ubalawu.
Okay, I gotta try. I like to try things. It'd be nice. So yeah, we also talked about the parallels between dreaming and entheogenic experiences, and
yes.
Because there is many dynamics I found in dreaming experiences, and I was trying to use them in psychedelic trips.
Mm-hmm.
But that I obviously do not have the in-depth experience like you do with 30-40 grams. I stayed at the level of 7-8, probably there, and
well, I'm just cracking the surface here, trying to understand more. There are other people that are doing as much as I do and more, and they're not even as big as I am, because that's one thing folks say, well, he's a big guy, he takes a lot and all that kind of thing. No, you have people who are a lot smaller who take a lot of mushrooms, so it's nothing special that I'm doing. I'm, like all of us, groping in the dark, trying to understand a mystery that's so vast and so deep that there's no bottom to it and there's no ceiling. So, we're all here to help one another learn. We're all here to be able to support one another in our understanding, and that's really what it's about. But this journey still, although we have liaisons, we have crossings, we have relationships, we have all these things, but ultimately we're alone in the dark, and that's where we're moving from.
A friend of mine was launching this just this question. Maybe you can, if you don't mind, to it's coming. We are coming to 2 hours soon. As it can be a summarizing question as well. It's the question is simple. It's not coming from my lips. It was from a boxing coach. So the question goes as simple as that. Why do you do that? Why do you use entheogenics? Why this experience? Why what's the purpose?
The purpose is to understand all that there is to understand, to be able to realize the exploration of your own consciousness. So that's the way I put it. To know all that there is to know. That's what Spock said that was Vijay's purpose, was to learn all that there is to learn. To know all that there is to know. Yes, knowledge.
Expect the knowledge. Huh?
As Don Juan would say, a man of knowledge.
A man of knowledge, yeah. Another thing I picked up from Carlos Castaneda books that I really like is warrior picks up the right fights. That really changed my life greatly. Oh my God! Instead of being the ping pong ball and just accepting any fight coming to my door, to have a very clear vision of me making the choice of fighting or not, and realizing that I was maybe fighting too many fights, and now I pick up my fight. I choose where exactly I want to fight. I don't know if we have time to talking about fights, but you were talking about Jin today, your Jin encounter, and you put him in some infinite swirling around in space. And I remember in one of your videos that we can find on YouTube, I think it was it was a conference or something. You were talking about this, and you were insisting on the fact that you are a martial artist and that your experiences of with entheogenic have that accent. I have a kind of fighting spirit too, and I'm very peaceful. But I wanted to ask you, so what is going on there for you? If you want to,
as far as what's going on, as far as me fighting aliens and transdimensional beings. Well, I mean, I don't go out looking for trouble, just like here. But if you're familiar with Eddie Murphy's Clumps, I'm from the Grandma Clump School. I ain't chasing you, but if you walk over, you'll limp back. The thing is that I don't, like I said, I don't look for conflict. I'm peaceful, but if you bring it, I will, I will oblige you, no matter what you are, who you are, or what type of entity or being you are. So it's no hesitation there, because you can't in some of these places, and I go into some really strange and dark places and encounter really some strange and awesome beings, but you have to meet everything on your feet and eye to eye. You can't go in like you're a peasant. You can't go in like everything is so much greater than you and you're just a lowly human being and you're standing before the gods or the angels or whatever. All that doesn't mean nothing when you get out in the far out lands. Either you stand or you're a burger. Either you stand or you will be crushed. And I know people don't like to hear that, because they like to think that psilocybin and entheogens is all love.
Love and light.
Yeah, love and light. But no, I can tell you it's not. The Vedas say that there are 432,000 different humanoid types just in this solar system alone. And out of that 432,000, about 100,000 are civilized. And the humans are not in the civilized portion of that 332,000. So
oh wow!
The rest will eat you, rape you, abuse you, take advantage of you, and not even think twice about it, because the moralities that were set up by the ruling kingship families to control people don't apply there. The gods don't have morals. The interdimensional, transdimensional beings don't have morals. They have, most of them are cosmically indifferent. In other words, it's not that they're evil. It's not that they don't like you. They're just indifferent to you. It's like moving through a cloud of smoke. You just wave your hand through it. You don't say, you don't say that, I'm harming the smoke. That's just how they are. They don't, everybody, you have to take care of your own behind.
So I was thinking, it's coming out and having, metaphorically speaking, a woman or man take your balls with you and stand up where you have to stand and enjoy standing. you take responsibility of yourself in a sense that you take your power, take your power, stand up. So I have the same reaction. No, first reaction I have, if I encounter, even if it's not an entheogenic trip, but I have many guys coming and say, oh, in dreams I met this, I met that, and I had encounters as well, I met a few beings, entities, and all that. My first reaction is I make fun. I say, oh, so what you do is something scary, so it's fun, is it? So so I take it with humor and see what happens. But yeah, I'm a bit like you, of course. I have my balls too, so don't walk over me. I will retaliate as well if I have to. But peaceful, 99.99% of the time is, and I take it with humor. If humor can settle, fine. I'm not looking for encounters or fightings. I love the mental game of boxing. I love it, but. Fighting, to prove someone that I'm strong, completely beyond all of this. It's no. Yeah. But in the experience, I take this responsibility. Take responsibility. It needs a bit of strength, personal strength, and determination. Sometimes to tackle the unknown. It's not an easy thing for a human to be used to be human every day, and then. All of a sudden be transformed into something else and have a different kind of view around, perception. It takes a bit of courage, no?
Yes. All right, Yuri. How about we wrap it up and let Mr. Kilindi get some rest? I'm sure we can engage with Kilindi on a series of these live casts over time. Kilindi, I'd just like to. Sorry, Yuri. I'd just like to wrap up, Kilindi, with you maybe leaving a little bit of information for us on the coming conference at Detroit Psychedelics.
Well, we have a very wonderful conference coming up. We've prepared quite a bit of information and knowledge with our different speakers and panels and workshops and things that we have coming up this August 10th, 11th, and 12th in the city of Detroit. So if you're near, please come on out and spend a weekend with us. If you're far and you can't make it, then start gearing up for the next one. We do them every other year. This is the third one. It's a world-class conference. And like I said, it's with the folks who are actually doing the work and making the journeys. And they may not be part of the luminosity or the luminaries of the psychedelic world. Many of them you may not have heard of, but when the rubber meets the road, this is where these people are. And we'll be having a great time that weekend. So if you get a chance, go to the website, which is DetroitPsychedelics.com. For those folks who can make it out, it may be just inconvenient, bad timing. You may be in Australia, it is coming up in 2 weeks and you can't make it for some reason. We put up a donation button on occasion, and you can donate to some awfully good work dealing with psychedelics in dealing with the traveling of the multiverse. Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it. It's an honor to be on your show and to talk to your listeners. And we'll have to do it again. And
oh my God, thank you, Kilindi.
Thank you so much, Kilindi. This has been absolutely wonderful.
Well, thank you both, and I'll be in contact with you on Facebook and cyberspace, and we'll do it again soon. So I'm signing off so I can get to bed because I'll be traveling tomorrow. So
yeah, go ahead. Yeah. So oh my God, I was just going to ask you. Let's make more. Okay, go to sleep.
Take care.
All right. See you on the next one. Thank you, folks.
Bye bye. Thank you, Michael.